On a cold winter's night in 2016, a small town in the Midwestern United States was shocked by a horrific crime that occurred in one of its quiet residential neighborhoods. The victim was a 33-year-old woman named Amanda, who lived alone in a small house on the corner of the street. Amanda was a beloved member of the community, known for her kind heart and gentle nature. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital and was always willing to lend a helping hand to anyone in need. On the night of the crime, Amanda was at home watching TV when someone knocked on her door. She opened the door to find a man standing on her doorstep, claiming to be in need of medical assistance. As a nurse, Amanda didn't hesitate to offer her help and invited the man into her home. Once inside, the man attacked Amanda, brutally beating her and leaving her unconscious on the floor. He then proceeded to ransack the house, stealing anything of value before fleeing the scene. A neighbor who heard the commotion called the police, and Amanda was rushed to the hospital, where she underwent emergency surgery for her injuries. However, despite the best efforts of the medical staff, Amanda passed away the following day due to severe head trauma. The police launched an intensive investigation, combing through the crime scene for any evidence that could lead them to the perpetrator. They were able to obtain DNA samples from the scene, which they later matched to a man who had been arrested for a similar crime in a nearby town. The man was eventually brought to trial, where he was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The community was left reeling from the tragic loss of Amanda, but found some solace in the fact that justice had been served. The trial of Amanda's killer revealed shocking details about the man's past, including a long history of violent crimes and a pattern of preying on vulnerable women. It was discovered that the man had been released from prison just months before Amanda's murder, after serving a sentence for assault and battery. Despite concerns from law enforcement officials and advocates for victims' rights, he was released back into society without any formal rehabilitation or monitoring. The case prompted calls for reform in the criminal justice system, with many arguing that more needs to be done to protect communities from dangerous offenders. Amanda's family and friends also became vocal advocates for victims' rights, calling for increased support and resources for those who have suffered at the hands of violent criminals. In the years since Amanda's death, the community has rallied around her memory, holding vigils and fundraisers in her honor. Her legacy lives on through the work of local organizations that support victims of crime and advocate for safer communities. Although Amanda's life was cut tragically short, her story serves as a reminder of the importance of standing up for justice and working together to create a better world. In the aftermath of Amanda's murder, her family and friends also sought to honor her memory by creating a scholarship in her name. The scholarship is awarded annually to a nursing student who embodies Amanda's compassionate and caring spirit, and who is committed to making a positive difference in the lives of others. Through the scholarship, Amanda's legacy continues to inspire a new generation of healthcare professionals, who are dedicated to upholding the values that she held dear. The case also had a profound impact on law enforcement officials, who recognized the need for better coordination and communication between agencies to prevent violent offenders from slipping through the cracks of the criminal justice system. In response to the case, new protocols were established for sharing information between law enforcement agencies, and efforts were made to increase resources for rehabilitation and treatment programs that could help offenders turn their lives around. While nothing can bring back Amanda or undo the pain and suffering that her loved ones have endured, her tragic story has spurred positive change in the community and in the criminal justice system as a whole. Through the collective efforts of law enforcement officials, community leaders, and advocates for victims' rights, Amanda's memory will continue to inspire hope, healing, and progress for years to come. In the years following the trial and sentencing of Amanda's killer, her family and friends continued to work tirelessly to raise awareness about the importance of victims' rights and the need for greater accountability in the criminal justice system. They organized rallies, fundraisers, and awareness campaigns, which helped to bring attention to the issues at the heart of Amanda's case and to mobilize support for reform efforts. Their efforts paid off, as lawmakers and community leaders began to take notice and to take action. New legislation was introduced to strengthen victims' rights, increase funding for victim support services, and improve collaboration between law enforcement agencies. At the same time, the community rallied around Amanda's family, offering them support and comfort in their time of grief. They held memorials and candlelight vigils, and reached out to the family to offer whatever help they could. Through it all, Amanda's memory remained a beacon of hope and inspiration for those who knew her and for those who continue to work towards a better, safer, and more just society. While the pain of her loss will never fully fade, the legacy that she leaves behind serves as a powerful reminder of the impact that even one person can have on the world, and of the importance of fighting for what is right and just. In the years that followed Amanda's murder, her family and friends continued to honor her memory through their advocacy work and the annual awarding of the nursing scholarship in her name. The scholarship helped to support the next generation of healthcare professionals, who were inspired by Amanda's dedication to compassionate care and committed to making a difference in their communities. As the years passed, Amanda's case remained a cautionary tale of the dangers of releasing violent offenders back into society without proper rehabilitation and monitoring. Her story also continued to highlight the importance of community support for victims of crime and their families. Through their ongoing efforts, Amanda's loved ones ensured that her legacy would live on, inspiring others to work towards a brighter and more just future. Despite the tragedy that took her life, Amanda's memory remains a powerful force for good in the world, a reminder of the resilience and strength of the human spirit, and a call to action for those who seek to make a positive impact in their communities. As the years passed and the memory of Amanda's tragic death began to fade, a dark twist emerged that shocked the community once again. It was discovered that Amanda's killer had a partner in crime, a co-conspirator who had helped him plan and carry out the brutal murder. The partner, who had never been caught or identified, had been living among the community all along, undetected. As the investigation into the co-conspirator's identity began, suspicions and accusations flew throughout the community. People who had once trusted one another began to turn on each other, as fear and suspicion swept through the town. The case consumed the community, and tensions continued to escalate as the investigation dragged on. Meanwhile, Amanda's family and friends were left to grapple with the realization that the case was far from over, and that there were still dangerous individuals out there who had yet to be brought to justice. As the hunt for the co-conspirator intensified, many residents began to fear for their safety, locking their doors and avoiding public places. Rumors and speculation ran rampant, and the sense of unease and mistrust continued to grow. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement officials, the co-conspirator remained at large, a shadowy figure lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike again. And as the years passed, the community remained on edge, knowing that they were never truly safe, and that the darkness that had consumed them after Amanda's death had never truly lifted. Despite the fear and uncertainty that continued to plague the community, law enforcement officials refused to give up on the case. They continued to pursue every lead and piece of evidence, determined to bring the co-conspirator to justice. Finally, after years of searching, a breakthrough was made. A witness came forward with crucial information that led investigators to the co-conspirator's doorstep. The arrest of the co-conspirator sent shockwaves through the community, as residents struggled to come to terms with the fact that one of their own had been involved in such a heinous crime. The trial was highly publicized, and emotions ran high as the details of Amanda's murder were rehashed in court. In the end, the co-conspirator was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. But the damage had already been done. The community had been shattered by the revelation that there was more than one killer involved in Amanda's death. And even as the co-conspirator was led away in handcuffs, the residents of the town knew that they would never be able to forget the horror that had consumed their community. In the end, the memory of Amanda's murder would forever be intertwined with the darkness that had consumed the community in the years that followed. And though justice had been served, the scars of that dark chapter in the town's history would never truly fade away. As the co-conspirator was led away to begin their sentence, the community breathed a collective sigh of relief. But the investigation into Amanda's murder had left deep scars that would never fully heal. Despite the closure of the trial, rumors persisted about other individuals who may have been involved in the crime. As the years passed, new evidence came to light that suggested that there may have been more to Amanda's murder than had been previously thought. But just as the case seemed to be on the brink of a major breakthrough, something unexpected happened. The evidence disappeared, and the trail went cold once again. Law enforcement officials were left scratching their heads, unsure of what had happened to the evidence and who might be responsible. And as the investigation once again ground to a halt, the community was left to wonder if they would ever know the full truth about what had happened to Amanda. The case had taken so many unexpected twists and turns, and it seemed as though there were still more secrets waiting to be uncovered. But with the evidence gone and no new leads to follow, the future of the investigation was uncertain. For Amanda's family and friends, the uncertainty was unbearable. They had spent so many years fighting for justice, and it seemed as though they were no closer to finding it than they had been on the day of Amanda's death. As the years passed, the case continued to haunt the community, and the memory of Amanda's murder lingered like a dark cloud over the town. And even as time passed, the possibility that the truth might one day be uncovered remained tantalizingly out of reach. Just when it seemed like the case would never be solved, a new lead emerged. A previously unknown witness had come forward with information that could potentially crack the case wide open. But this lead was different from the others. It was shaky and uncertain, and it came from an unlikely source. Despite the doubts and skepticism, the investigators decided to follow it, knowing that it might be their last chance to solve the case. As they delved deeper into the new lead, the investigators began to uncover a web of lies and deception that went far deeper than anyone had imagined. It became clear that Amanda's murder was just the tip of the iceberg, and that there were even more heinous crimes lurking beneath the surface. But just as the investigators were on the verge of uncovering the truth, something unthinkable happened. The witness who had provided the crucial information was found dead, the victim of an apparent suicide. The investigators were left reeling, unsure of what to do next. With their lead gone, it seemed as though the case would once again fall apart. But one investigator refused to give up. Despite the setback, he continued to pursue the case, driven by a fierce determination to uncover the truth. And as he delved deeper into the dark underworld of the town, he began to realize that the web of lies and deceit went far deeper than he had ever imagined. As the investigation approached its climax, the investigator found himself caught in a dangerous game of cat and mouse, hunted by unknown forces who would stop at nothing to keep their secrets hidden. And just as the investigator was on the verge of cracking the case wide open, he found himself face to face with the true mastermind behind the conspiracy, a shadowy figure who had been manipulating events from behind the scenes. With his life hanging in the balance, the investigator knew that he was about to uncover the truth behind Amanda's murder, and that the consequences of that truth would be far-reaching and deadly. As the investigator stood face to face with the shadowy figure, he felt a shiver run down his spine. He knew that he was in grave danger, but he also knew that he couldn't back down now. The two men stared at each other for a long moment, their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. And then, without warning, the figure made his move. The investigator had no time to react. One moment he was standing there, staring at his adversary, and the next he was falling through the darkness, his world spinning out of control. He had no idea where he was or what had happened to him, but one thing was clear: he was in deep trouble. And as he struggled to make sense of his surroundings, he realized that the truth behind Amanda's murder was even darker and more sinister than he had ever imagined. But just as he was beginning to piece together the puzzle, the darkness closed in around him once again, and he was left alone with his thoughts, wondering if he would ever escape the clutches of the shadowy figure who held the key to the truth. The fate of the investigation hung in the balance, and the future of the town was at stake. But as the investigator struggled to stay alive, he knew that he was the only one who could uncover the truth behind the darkness that had consumed the community. And with that thought in his mind, he resolved to do whatever it took to survive and bring justice to the memory of Amanda, even if it meant sacrificing everything he held dear.